Hey, Mitch.
Hey, Ed, how's it going?
Oh, it's a beautiful day here in Bay City. It's just like Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch. Oh my God, I love that show. I just started getting into it. Have you seen it?
Have I seen it? I love Starsky and Hutch. In fact, I told Starsky all about it, that you just, started to watch it.
What? How? How did you tell him?
Well, he's a friend of mine. Here, I'll get him. Hold on. Dispatch, this is Zebra 3. Are you there, Starsky?
Go ahead, Zebra 3.
So Ed tells me that you just discovered Starsky and Hutch. Well, thank you for being so complimentary and supportive. It's a lot of years ago.
Yeah, there's your turn over there.
A lot of years. Do my best to Ed. Tell him it's been a while.
Oh, that was cool, Ed.
I know. Wasn't that fantastic? Thanks, Starsky. It's so cool to see Dave,
Hey, watch out over there, Ed.
Yeah. It's not not Hutch, is it?
No,
Hutch.
watch the road, Ed. Look out!
What? Ah! Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Halleck.
And welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on us and saying hello, and hopefully you'll enjoy the episode. If you're a long-time viewer or subscriber, thanks so much. We've had some, we're up to, I think, 440 subscribers now, so thank you. We really appreciate it. But how can you find out if you're new to the show or you just discover it? What can you do to find out when we drop a new show?
Oh, it's as easy as going downtown and getting the word from Huggy about what's going down on the street. Ed, simply smash that subscribe button on the bottom of the screen, and you will be going on for a ride with me and Ed when we hit the streets on an excellent adventure. Where are we going today?
Well, we're going to 1970s Bay City, not Los Angeles, as many people would think, but it's actually Bay City, the fictional city where Starsky and Hutch ran their beat. It was Ken Hutchinson and Dave Starsky. And this was a classic TV series from the 1970s, a cop show, and it did the cop show formula a little bit differently, I felt. It was a series that ran for 4 seasons, about 90 or so episodes, ran from 1976 through to 1979. I recently discovered it. I had watched, I think, it in reruns. I was a bit too young when it originally came out because it was quite an adult show. There were adult themes, certainly, and we'll probably talk about a few key episodes throughout today. But I recently bought the box set of it, and Kelly and I sat down and watched it, and we were just, we don't usually binge, but we would watch, 1 or 2 episodes a night, and we went through all the seasons. And in fact, that's why we are seeing Paul Michael Glaser, who we've sort of hijacked to be on this show, but that was actually from a cameo that I got Kelly for her birthday earlier in the year. So thank you, Mr. Glaser, for being so generous with that. And we just love the show. So I've been buying up a lot of things and really enjoying it. Did you see it when it originally came out?
I did, Ed. It was an event. I watched it, and then we talked all about it on the playground. I was a little kid, but I think it was like 1975. I was at 9 or 10 or going on 10. And I had such flexible parents there. Not that they were contortionists, but they would pretty much let me watch what I wanted to watch. And I would stay up beyond that magic hour of like 8 or 9 o'clock. When most of my friends in Catholic school were sound asleep, I was up at 10 o'clock watching the Spelling Goldberg's production of Starsky and Hutch. I watched the 90-minute TV movie. That was the pilot, and it was a special episode because there was a different Captain Dobie. It wasn't Bernie Hamilton.
No.
No, but it did introduce us to David Starsky, played by Paul Michael Glaser. You just mentioned Glazer, and David Soul
Yep.
as
One of my
Ken Hutch.
favorites.
Yeah. And instant favorite. Love that show. So much so that we would go in the playground. I would tell the kids about this show, Starsky and Hutch, and I have vivid memories of reenacting the show with my cousin Gwen, even though she was down the street. She was blonde, and she would always play Hutch, and I would play Starsky, and we would do Starsky and Hutch on the playground and run around. And in school, we'd grab some kid, he'd be Huggy Bear, and we'd be saving lives all over the streets of New Haven, just like Starsky and Hutch.
That's fantastic.
It was a great show. I watched it every week. Yeah.
It was a big hit. The pilot, I think what worked really well was the chemistry between the two leads, David Soul and Paul Michael Glaser. You really felt like they were friends. They had a really good bond between each other. And I think what I liked, they were relative unknowns at that point. David Soul was best known for, I think it was Magnum Force.
Yeah, Dirty Harry picture. Yeah. So, you know what? He was a TV staple kind of guy, because I'd seen him on there was a show my sister watched. They were older than me. I think the guy's name was Bobby Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 7 Brides for 7 Daughters or something like that. And David Soul, was one of the brothers on that show. So I remember.
Yeah, they did a lot of guest shows on Canon and a lot of those TV series, and they came together and their chemistry just clicked. And what when you think of, I suppose, 70s cop shows, everyone was really, the guys were really, macho, no nonsense, no emotion or anything like that. Whereas with these guys, there was a real connection. They were, they cried, they discussed their feelings, they touched each other, sort of thing. You felt that there was a real, brotherly love between the two of them. And I think that's what carried the season, the show, because it was just, maybe a generic, it started off maybe a little generic cop show, but adding that element, I think really put it into the pop zeitgeist. And that's why we're talking about and wearing, t-shirts.
Well, you are.
Yeah, where's your t-shirt, Nick?
I have my. Don't start. We need to get Starsky and Hutch on the case and find my missing Starsky and Hutch t-shirt. It's here somewhere. Right. Now listen. Yeah, I know there was a bunch of these cop shows. There was a bunch of stuff in the 70s. They tried to change up the genre a little bit, because we started getting shows like Policewoman with Angie Dickinson, and then there was Vegas, which would come down the pike soon, and then Charlie's Angels would come down there, all from Aaron Spelling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, not so much Policewoman, but Vegas and Charlie's Angels and stuff. So he was trying to change up the genre a bit, because like you said, people were used to Dragnet, they were used to Ironside. It was all straightforward police detective work. But you're right; these two guys had an emotional relationship that went beyond just punching each other in the shoulder. Let's go out there and get the bad guys. The rumor is that this was based on the real life adventures of these two New York City cops out here. And I don't know the name off the top of my head, but I'm sure, using the power of the Mitch and Ed Excellent Adventure, you will see their picture and names right now.
Yep.
So much so that they settled out of court for a whopping $10,000.
That was big money on the street of Bay City at that time.
That's in the 70s. That was damn big money on the streets. Yes. But anyway, there was that little talk that they were based on. And the reason why that is because these two detectives in real life went above and beyond and wore elaborate disguises and did all they could do to capture the bad guys when they went undercover. It wasn't just stakeout. They would dress up and, crazy elaborate outfits and such like that. Just like Starsky and Hutch did on the show. That was one of the cool elements about it. They were cops, but they also had an air of theatrical about them, and you'd see them in various get-ups and, pretending to be certain characters there. And of course, we can't be remiss if we didn't mention their man on the street who knew everything that was going down.
Antonio Fargas
as Huggy Bear.
Yes, and he just knew stuff.
Everything that was going on. Shipments coming in, bad guys dealing bad Mexican brown, heroin, whatever,
Yes.
Huggy was there, but Huggy had a heart of gold.
He did.
He was a little shady, but when it, push came to shove, he did the right
He
thing.
did the right thing, and I think that served really well. As I think in the first season when they had the pits, Huggy's nightclub bar, and I always thought I'd love to go to that bar. Look at those pinball machines, and just go down there. It was really quite. It was seedy, but not too seedy, which was kind of nice. And they'd always lean on Huggy in a friendly way a little bit, because they did have that mutual admiration for each other, and I think that's what shone through as well. You said, Huggy had a heart of gold, and so did Starsky and Hutch, in that they did go above and beyond. They actually cared, and they actually cared for the people that they were, they just didn't shoot to kill.
No, it was their neighborhood. It was their community.
Yep.
You can't stop. You got to mention Bernie Hamilton as Captain Dobie. He was part of that Fantastic Four. He was the hard-bitten, hard-driven, no-nonsense, captain of the police department, but he always, let Starsky and Hutch bend the rules because they got the job done. But it always drove Captain Dobie crazy.
It did, and they always. I liked in the earlier seasons where they used to do little practical jokes on him, or they were always commenting about how much he ate, which is really quite funny.
To cut back a bit, but.
Yeah. And what I did like about David, sorry?
No, I said he'd walk down the hallways with a tray of food with like 4 sandwiches and 3 milks. It's like Captain Dobie.
I know.
What are you doing?
I know. And I liked that, David Starsky and Ken Hutchinson were, quite different. Ken was into health food, and he'd always make those blended milkshakes, and he was always into that, whereas Starsky was into the junk food and the whatever lifestyle, and they were a great foil as well for it. I remember Starsky was always into the horoscopes and reading through those things, whereas Ken was quite the opposite and didn't believe in any of that. And I think that worked really well, where they could play off, and you found out that the humor wasn't super broad humor, but it was the characters worked really well together. It was always funny. Even some of those darker episodes at least had a little bit of light in them, so they weren't totally depressing. And they did look at a lot of pressing issues of the time. They started off. I know there was some complaints about the violence in the episodes, and they did soften that and then focused on their relationship a little bit more as season 3 and 4 got along. But there was some really dark and disturbing episodes in there. Two of my favorite episodes. One is The Fix, where when it's basically Hutchinson gets
addicted to heroin.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I was gonna say you jumped right to the darkest episode. Okay, go ahead, Ed. Go right down into the sewer. Sure, that's like the low point of that. I remember as a kid watching that, we were like, "Holy crap!" That's a 2-parter, isn't it?
There's a 2-parter when I think it was when Starsky gets injured, so they have to. What about the one when Hutchinson he can't be found? They're basically trying to find each other. It's a game they play where they are going, you'll never be able to find me. My contacts, you won't be able to be found. And then they find out that Hutchinson actually has had some bad. No, not Hutchinson. Has had some bad food, and he's got food poisoning, and he's going to die. So they're trying to find where he is. That was a really good one. The other one, which was quite shocking, was called Nightmare, where a mentally disabled child is sexually assaulted, and it's up to Ken and Dave to try and find the perpetrator. And that was pretty full on as well for a prime time show of that kind.
No. Well, I was gonna say there's a bunch of things part of the show we didn't mention already. There's another member of the cast, and that would be the Gran Torino.
Oh, yes, of course.
Tomato. Now, here's the deal. I only had a black and white TV. I had no idea that thing was red. I was going to school, and I thought it was blue because you're thinking it's a police car. I thought, hey, it's a shade of gray. It's probably blue with a white stripe. Mine was blown 2 years later when we got a color TV, and there's this red car coming down the street. I'm like, holy crap, that Gran Torino is a red car. Now, that car was so popular, everybody wanted a Gran Torino. I remember that in the 70s. That was a big deal. It was a muscle car. But there's multiple Zebra 3s on that show. They destroyed the hell out of them. I think they had like 4 they used for the show. But if you watch it very closely, and I know you just did, the first season, it's got silver mirrors on the side of the car, and that changes. Then it becomes red. And then if you watch it in the 4th season, the last season of Starsky and Hutch, look at it really good. That car's got more dings and dents and bangs in it because they used it so often they couldn't get any more. And that's it. That car was beaten up. And speaking of beat up cars,
Are you talking about
Hutch.
Ken Hutch's?
Hutch's car was not like a fast moving hot rod like Starsky's was. No, it was the brown bomber.
Yeah,
It was a big piece of crap 1975 Chevy that the door, I think the car horn would go off when you'd open the driver's door. And that was problematic when they'd go undercover. And there was so much junk in the back, you couldn't put any perps or any bad guys in the back seat because it was a piece of crap, that car. So yeah, I remember the two of them personalities were distinct, and then the cars they drove were distinct. And so much so that Huggy Bear would always comment on the two's clothes. And then even their style of dress was different too, because Hutch always wore like the leather jackets and the turtlenecks and the more like, I don't know, like
it was a bit more fashionable, I think.
More
fashionable. A bit of a trendsetter, whereas
Starsky looked
Starsky,
like a longshoreman with the hat, like the denim, like he was on the docks in New York unloading freight or something like that.
Yes, and the famous he always used to wear his famous Adidas, or I think you call them Adidas, don't you?
Yes, the sweet. Every kid had a pair of those. Now that you remember, I had a pair of those. That blue satiny shoes with it had to have 3 stripes, 3 white stripes. That was every kid wanted those. I remember begging my grandmother for those for Christmas. I'm like, get me those things. And he had the Starsky sweater.
Yes.
Big collar
the cardigan,
sweater.
the roll neck cardigan, and
the little design on it.
The interesting thing. Oh, I forgot. I've actually got hang on, let me just get this off the ground, which is my I'll show you that to you a bit later when we're talking about merchandise. But I've actually got a pattern. It was so popular they made patterns for that. So I've got a pattern for it. So if you know anyone out there who can knit and wants to knit me a roll neck cardigan, please do so. I couldn't afford one just for this show. Maybe we do need to start up a Patreon because it was like
a budget. It was like
people
$400 right now. Subscribe, right? If you're watching this and enjoying, subscribe. Yep. Send us money. We need our money. So Ed can get a Starsky sweater.
That's right. But I've got to say that he only wore that in like 3 episodes.
Oh, really? Because when they made the action figure, it came with the sweater, if I recall.
No, he came with. I'll put up a picture. We'll talk merchandise in a minute. But back to the roll neck, because he wore it. He wore it only for 3 episodes. They found it at like a Goodwill shop, but it was in the opening credits.
Yeah.
So you saw that all the time, and it was in a lot of the promotional material. So that's
the thing. Yes, you're exactly right. They used to do the posters. Yes. Posters were a big deal when I was a kid. You had the Farrah Fawcett poster. Everybody had a poster. That was the thing. You would go to the record store or the record department at your local department store, and you would look through that giant portfolio full of posters. It was this big thing, like a plastic thing. You'd flip the pages, then you'd match up the number of the poster to the rolled tubes there and make sure you got the right one, because you didn't want to go home thinking you had a Farrah Fawcett and you come home and you have kitties hanging there with daisies and stuff. But the Starsky and Hutch, that was a popular thing. I remember as a kid, you would write to Aaron Spelling Productions over on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles, Hollywood, California. And they would send postcards. And I distinctly remember getting the postcard from Starsky and Hutch, and it had them on the front, and on the back it had a pre-printed autograph saying, thank you for watching the show. They would send these things out all the time. It's like that's how they did like press or pen pals or whatever. ABC TV was famous for it. I would get SWAT that had Robert Urich and Steve Forrest and the whole cast on that, and then you would get all the ABC shows. Charlie's Angels had one, but I do remember getting the Starsky and Hutch one, Rookies, Emergency, all that stuff. But that was like the bomb. I brought that to school, like, I got an autograph from Starsky and Hutch, and everybody's like, Starsky and Hutch, But the weird thing is, that show, we're going to end the talk, it was only a 4-year show.
Yes.
And starting with the first season, behind the scenes, Paul Michael Glaser wanted to get the hell out of that show. I mean, he had problems with the production from the get-go. He was always threatening to leave the show. There was episodes where he didn't want to be part of it. He wouldn't film or whatever happened. And the producers were working with him. They started letting him direct some shows.
Yeah, he directed a few episodes, and which are actually really good. They're quite tonally different to the rest of the season, but they're really good. They're I think they're a bit more filmatic in that he wanted to be a film director, and the shots are quite intricately designed and staged and everything. It's really good. David Soul also got to direct a few episodes, but they managed to, he was under contract for the 4 seasons, and it only ran obviously didn't go for the 5th season. Otherwise I think he probably would have tried to leave. They
even had Starsky's brother come on in season 4.
Yes.
And I think that's why they were planning on, hey, look, things didn't work out, we got your brother. And it will still call it Starsky and Hutch because it's your brother. Yes. So yeah, they had backup plans in case Paul Michael Glaser didn't work out and wanted to leave the production. So
yeah. But thankfully that didn't happen. We got a well-rounded 4 seasons. Now, of course, David Soul,
when you watched your 4 seasons, did they have different theme songs? Because
yes,
they had a fantastic theme song from the first episode. But then they changed it with some of the graphics in the opening montage. It was like bam 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 bam, and they had that wah wah bar, that 70s,
yes,
and you had the bongos and all that. That was this later song, but the first season, when I watched it, you heard this revving sound of a car, and it was down the long alleyway, and Zebra 3 comes racing towards the screen, and it's like, and there was a different. They were great songs. I don't know if the same composer.
No, so Lalo Schifrin who did the Mission Impossible theme. He did the first season, and then they went to the second season. Now it was I'm trying to think.
It's Tom Scott. Tom Scott is the guy who does the sax, and he's the one that does the music for it. Trust me on this, because Tom Scott played with the Blues Brothers in the late 70s. I remember as a kid, the radio station would play the theme from SWAT, which was huge.
Yes,
and the theme from Starsky and Hutch. There was also, they were like disco music almost.
Well, they had the theme from the Rockford Files. That was a hit as well.
That's Mike Post.
That is Mike Post. Yes, that's right. Because he did Hill Street. He did Hill Street Blues as well.
Yeah, Hill Street Blues.
But I was just saying that David Soul also had another career as well at the same time, where he was a singer and had a number of hits, including
Don't Give Up on Us Baby.
And I can
thoroughly... Black Bean Soup?
Sorry?
Black Bean Soup, wasn't that his? I think that was one of his.
It might have been. I've got a few of his albums actually, and they're really quite good. They're just sort of like folk.
Black Eyed Soup. Black Eyed Soup, I think it's called. I don't know. Black Eyed Beans. I don't know. He had one. So he used to be on the radio. Don't Give Up on Us Baby was always on the radio, but he did have other hit songs there.
Absolutely, and he's still performing today as a performance artist. We saw him doing a live stream of the poems of, I think it was Neruda, the Spanish playwright. If I'm wrong, I'll put down the name of it. Where he had like a Spanish guitarist and a violinist, and he would do it, and it was fantastic. He still sounds. He's obviously a little older, but he still sounds exactly like Hutch.
Do you know, watching those opening credits there, I met Mr. Soul a couple years ago. I met Paul Michael Glaser, Fargus, and Soul at a comic convention in Jersey. We got to take our pictures with them, and they had 3 Zebra 3 cars behind us, and it was really cool. They were great guys to meet. But Mr. Soul had some back problems and stuff, and I was told that opening scene where you see him land on the hood of the car that they from the pilot that they used in the opening credits, that's where he hurt himself. He injured his lower back, and that would be a lifelong ailment that he'd have to suffer through even to this day. I mean, we saw him, he was on crutches, and then he had a wheelchair to get around. And true to Starsky and Hutch fame off screen, Paul Michael Glaser was wheeling him around the convention in a wheelchair because they're really good friends in real life. And
cool.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that came from that bit. And Mr. Fargus, I learned, don't get crazy. He lived in Newtown, Connecticut for about 20 years, which is right up the road from me. And we talked about the local area because that's about 8 miles from me. So Antonio Fargus lived in Connecticut for years. And then he moved out to Los Angeles. And what happened is the great earthquake of '89, when the whole LA collapsed, the highway collapsed, for a time, he was separated from his wife. She thought he had died in that tragic collapse of the highway, and he thought she had died because they were separated. It wasn't like cell phones like now. You could find people. I mean, Los Angeles was hit by a huge, huge, devastating earthquake. And for a while, the two of them, his wife and he, were separated. They thought each other had been killed. But that's a little behind the scenes story there. Supposed to be tragic, is we all know Paul Michael Glaser suffered some really, again, devastating personal tragedy with his wife and his child in the early days of the '80s, before they knew to test for HIV blood. His wife received a transfusion and passed it on to their daughter, and unfortunately they passed away years later. He was head of the Pediatric AIDS Society. He went and did a lot of fundraising for years. I think up until like 2003 or so, he was the president of that.
And he still does. He still does fundraising, and you can catch him on. Well, he was on Cameo for a little while, so we're really happy that that's the case. But he also has he's a painter and artist now, and you can go and see his artwork and buy his artwork if you're interested. And
David Soul, besides that, he went on to do Salem's Lot.
Yes,
that fantastic Stephen King adaptation in the late '70s, which was on CBS. The two-parter, one of the scariest scenes ever, is when the kid's dead friend comes back from the grave and is tapping
up on the window. Yep.
I get scared.
Yeah, he was also in Casablanca, a really short-lived series.
Yeah, my dad watched that. I remember that, Casablanca, The Adventures of Rick Blaine. After Elsa took off on that plane, you see what happened behind the scenes. Yeah, that lasted about a year on NBC.
Yep.
And such. Yeah.
And he's been doing, still active, and you can find him on Twitter and through his website as well. And
Antonio Fargas, he went on to tons of stuff. He was on Everybody Hates Chris. That was a show there was about Chris Rock. He had a recurring role on that. He was a regular, and he's done tons of stuff. He was even on the video game that they came out
they
with.
did a Starsky and Hutch video game, which was quite good. He did the voice. He played Huggy Bear, which was kind of good. And that, I suppose, leads us to merchandise.
Oh, wait, don't forget.
Oh, yeah.
Bernie Hamilton went on to a recording career.
I did see that.
Yes. Oh, no, he was like his brother. I can't think of his brother's name. You see it there. But his brother had an elaborate recording record contract or something like that. And Bernie went on. In fact, the album he did was Captain Dobie Sings, was one of the first records he did. Yep. And then he went on and had a great music career until he died at 80. I think he was 80 years old, 82. Died in like 2003, 2008, something like that. So everybody did well. There's a Happy Days connection to the show. When David Starsky wanted to leave the show, when Paul Michael Glaser was going to go, you know who they brought in, don't you, to replace him?
It was Chuck Cunningham.
No,
I know.
Roz Kelly.
Yes.
Pinky Tuscadero was brought in.
That is correct. She was in for only one episode, and obviously
I know, but they had planned. They were going to swap out, where it says Starsky, insert Roz Kelly, and they were going to do that in case he didn't come back. But they managed to get him back for the fourth season. So.
That's right. They didn't jump the shark. They made it. So every popular show of that time did get merchandise, and Starsky and Hutch was no stranger to merchandise because it was a big hit. Of course, the main thing you would think would be is the car. So this is one from Corgi, which was really good. They brought out remote control versions, and you can get model kits and larger scale versions. They also brought a larger Starsky and Hutch car, which had the figures. So I'll try and get that if I can. But they brought out those. Mego brought out the action figures.
I had the action figures. And they had Huggy Bear came in this denim outfit.
Yes.
Like a denim jacket and denim pants and a little red scarf, if I remember.
Yes.
And I thought Starsky came with the sweater, but you're telling me no.
No, he didn't. He didn't even come with these signature like blue runners.
He did not. No.
He was wearing the moccasins that the Planet of the Apes figures wore.
That's what I was going to say. The Hutch looked like Ron Harper, who was Uncle Jack. He was Uncle Jack on Land of Lost, but he was also on the Planet of the Apes TV show. Because I remember as a kid, they didn't have Starsky and Hutch right away, but you were like, well, I suppose I can get the James Naughton, I think it was, and Ron Harper from Planet of the Apes TV show.
Yep.
They had those action figures out. You're like, these look just like Starsky and Hutch. But I do remember this. They did have a bad guy. I think they made a Captain Dobie one too, like a little fat guy,
Yes.
little suit. But they had a bad guy. And years before Freddy Krueger made the sweater famous, the bad guy figure for Mego for Starsky and Hutch came with this orange and black striped sweater. I remember getting the bad guy. And I was like, well, this is an odd choice, but he was just a generic guy.
Yeah, he was generic thug, and the card art was pretty generic. It
was just like a street scene, if I remember it. It looked like
was
an alley.
in America, and then I think it was Palatoy that brought them out in the UK, and the card art was a lot better. But they still, I've been looking for one or two for my collection, but they're quite expensive.
Really? I don't know. I thought, you know what? Did they come out? Mego made the car, didn't they?
There was a remote control car, but I don't think they didn't make a car for the figures, which was a little bit odd.
No, I thought they did. I could have sworn my cousin had that.
Well.
But they had a board game. What? They had puzzles back in the 70s.
Yes, they did.
A puzzle, because I remember buying the puzzle at the Child World, and the clerk, the cashier lady, looks and goes, "Oh, that's my boyfriend, Paul Michael Glaser." And the puzzle, I'm telling you, it was the white sweater in that damn puzzle.
Yeah, it would have been.
Him and Hutch posed, and Hutch had like a black turtleneck with the brown leather jacket on, and Starsky was wearing the big collared sweater.
Yep.
So,
well, anyway. We always say puzzles, trading cards. Now, did they do trading cards?
I'm gonna say no.
I don't think they did, but they
did a board game. There you go, Starsky and Hutch board game,
and not a cardigan to be seen. So there you go. But
they did a bunch of books too, because I remember getting. Yeah, there you go. I had those. The Book of the Month Club or the Scholastic Book Club at school would send this little order form every month, and you can get Starsky and Hutch. And I remember getting that.
Yeah, they did about, I think, 6 of those. They also did this for a lot of. It's a bit hard to see, but it's a mirror.
Ooh, yes, they would give those away at carnivals.
Yep,
that was a thing in the 70s. They'd have like Bruce Lee, and you'd have like wizards and stuff, and Starsky and Hutch.
I've got a John Travolta one as well.
John Travolta, yeah.
But they did Star Wars and things like that. And then
I remember getting this mirror, and then there was a whole thing like, don't get the mirrors because people do cocaine on them.
Well, that's what I use it for. So the other thing, it was the 70s.
It was the 70s. Yeah.
The other thing I just recently got, thanks to Kelly for this wonderful gift, is through davidsoul.com. They did a fundraiser where they were getting autographed. You could buy an autograph, and they would send it because from the UK, because David Soul's located in the UK. Paul Michael Glaser is in America, and you could actually get personalized autographs. And there is my one.
Look at that. There's the sweater.
Yep. Well, I chose the black and white one. I thought it looked quite good. So I like that. Hey Ed, take good care, David Soul. And to Ed, best, Paul Michael Glaser. So that's up on my wall. I'm very proud of that. So that's fantastic.
And Ed, we don't forget, it's so popular it made a movie with Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson in, I'm going to say 2006, maybe
2004. Snoop Dogg played Huggy Bear, and David Soul and Paul Michael Glaser had a cameo in it as well at the very end. And it, you know what? It was okay, but it was a bit more, but it was more of a parody.
Yeah, I wasn't too thrilled with that. I was actually looking forward. Here's the problem. They remade Miami Vice with Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell. It was horrible. It's like, what the hell is it? And Michael Mann made the damn movie, so he's the creator. I'm like, oh, it's going to be Crockett and Tubbs. This is going to be great. It sucks. It really, don't even waste your time. This came out. I was like, oh my God, Starsky and Hutch, we're going. I took the kids. It's one of those Ben Stiller, Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson, good old boys. Is it the same guy? Was it McKay, the guy that made the 40-year-old virgin? One of the,
probably. I don't know, but it
felt
like
guy.
that.
It's that Judd Apatow. Is it him? There's like a little click of these people. They have these little group. They make the same movies. Will Ferrell's in them, and it's like, oh, all right. But the problem is, it's an okay movie. It's got some funny parts to it. But I remember the audience was clapping like crazy when the real Starsky and Hutch showed up at the end of the movie. It's like, why didn't you just give us that? Honestly, why didn't you do like Starsky and Hutch come out of retirement for one last case to catch a bad guy, or you know, something happened to Huggy Bear's kids or something? You know, I would have paid money to see that thing instead of this goofball, you know, Ben Stiller, whatever the hell that thing was supposed to be.
I know it just played it for laughs a little bit too much, and I felt like they did care about the subject matter, but it just veered into parody a little bit too much. You know, they had all the, you know, the clothes and that, and Owen Wilson. I didn't think, like, Ben Stiller was all right as Starsky, but I didn't think Owen Wilson was really right for.
No, Owen Wilson was Owen Wilson, which is just
pretty
kind of
much
like he does his slow draw thing like that, you know. Oh yeah, that's Owen Wilson. He's got
pretty much that.
He's got one delivery, you know.
Yes.
Whether it's Loki, I don't know Loki.
Yeah, I hear you.
Or Hall Pass. His wife lets him sleep once. Or Wedding Crashers. That's it. He talks like that, Ed. He's got that whiny, nasally Midwestern thing. He's like Jeff Goldblum on Valium, you know. Or Goldblum's like
yeah, with less hands,
with less hand movement.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
right.
He's a one-note actor. And if you watch,
so don't worry about the movie so much. There's the DVD box set. It is, I think it has been released on Blu-ray as well, but it's certainly worth watching. You can buy replica versions of the car, from small size to actual life size ones. I had the pleasure of sitting in and when I was of all things was when I was Captain Jack Sparrow at the waterfront. There was a replica of the Gran Torino of Zebra 3. So I'll put up a picture of that now, and it's a beautiful car. There's
they do a lot of conventions. They show up a lot.
Yep.
Not saying I'm gonna get them for my show, but you never know. Eventually, maybe.
How cool would that be?
I know, that's the thing. My wife goes, you can't keep getting these people that you grew up with from the 70s. It's not about you. I go, I pay the bills.
That's right. It is about you.
It is about me. It's my name above the show. So
that's right. Whatever. So definitely watch Starsky and Hutch. It is a wonderful series. I think you'll really enjoy it. There's not really a bad I wouldn't say there's a bad episode. There's some confronting episodes. There's a lot of there's and humor.
They deal with everything. One of the best scenes I always remember is there's a racist cop who shoots I don't know if the guy was innocent. He shoots him in the back. I can't remember what the deal was. It was a bad cop, and he shot the guy. And I think Starsky's yelling at him. He's like, well, why? Was he a threat to you? He's like, well, he was running away, and he didn't stop when I told him to stop. And he's like, okay, so why'd you shoot him? Well, I did. And then this woman says, that's not what happened. And then this guy uses a non-PC word, and Starsky slaps the right out of him, right now. Bam, right there. I was like, yeah. And that's back in the 70s.
Yes.
You know, and I was as a kid. I was like, you see that? You see that? You say that? Starsky's going to slap you in the face. So it was really ahead of its time.
It was.
I mean, nowadays you turn on the news every night, you got a scene like something like that going on with excessive violence. But boy, this is 1975, 76, and they were like, honestly, going back, MASH, Starsky and Hutch, a lot of these shows really had a good moral fiber, a good moral character. Even the Incredible Hulk, for goodness sakes. You don't see that. You wonder why this whole generation of people like our age, kind of like goody two shoes, I've been called like a Boy Scout. You grew up with some very high moralistic television shows for role models. I mean, they weren't slackers. They weren't just hanging out like drinking beer and getting high. These actually guys stood up. They had principle. They actually, did what was right. They had morals. Hats off to you, Starsky and Hutch. You were a good bunch of cops, man.
Yeah,
I like that. No, I'm just saying, thinking back about it, it was above and beyond your typical cop show. So
absolutely.
Go watch it.
Go watch it. And you know what else you can watch? Maybe some other episodes of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. But how could you find out about that again?
Oh, Ed, it is easy as just flooring the Zebra 3 and doing donuts in the middle of the street, just hit the subscribe button on the bottom. Do it now. Do it for Starsky. Do it for Hutch. Do it for Huggy Bear, okay?
Yeah. Do
And
it for
you'll be
Captain Dobie sandwiches.
Captain Dobie sandwiches. That's right. Make it a big thing. Make his
That's
show
right.
get higher and higher. Not like Hutch was high on the dope. Don't do the
No.
dope.
No,
No.
but a
Don't do
great
the
episode.
crime.
A great episode.
It is a good. It's. I remember that scared the hell out of me. That episode. I
I
remember
know.
that.
And
man.
that was
He
early
all
on in
strung
the
out.
first season.
He
Oh
was.
my gosh.
I know. I was like, wow. Hutch is on smack. He's on H. He's on the horse. He was booting.
Okay.
Okay.
Any others?
No,
All right.
I'm out of drug things.
All right. So thanks so much for watching. We'll be back with another exciting episode of, who knows where we will,
Maybe we'll do Beretta
travel to.
next time. I
We
don't know.
could. I think the misadventures of Sheriff Lobo, that's,
Oh no.
all right. Maybe not.
If we do
All
BJ and the Bear, we'll do that too.
That would be great. That would be good. Oh, I've got a chimp too. So for somewhere here. So
I've got an 18-wheel truck right in the back, right up the road.
So signing off for this week, this is Ed Dollister.
This is Mitch Halleck.
And thanks so much for watching. Take care.